Hi everybody, this is Dana Blackmer, the Extra Gear, and welcome to the webinar Escape the Hurt Locker, Imagery and Self-Talk for Endurance Athletes. What I wanted to do is just spend a few minutes, and I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly, in telling you something about what a sports psychologist or a mental skills coach does and some of the things that I do in my consulting work. I know that for a lot of you this may be a repeat if you've listened to talks I've done before or you've had some experience dealing with a sports psychologist. I just want to make sure that everybody's on board with what it is that people like me do for a living in their work with athletes, but I promise I will keep this as short as possible. Most of you know that in order to perform at your peak physically, it requires both physical and mental toughness, and many of you may have athletic trainers or coaches or people you work with that help you with your physical training, give you exercises, gives you a training plan to do. And those coaches deal with you as an athlete from the neck down. But a mental skills coach deals with people from the neck up, what it is that goes through their head, what they're thinking, things like their focus, their concentration, their confidence, their motivation, and so forth, in order to get them at their mental peak so that they can be ready both physically and mentally for their sport. You probably already know the importance of mental skills training from your own day-to-day experiences with your sport. If you think about it, you've probably had some days where participating in your sport has been very easy. You go out for a run or a ride or swim, and everything seems to be very easy. It appears like you're going downhill the whole time, and you feel like you're in that zone, like you could do no wrong, like you could go on forever. But the very next day, you might feel entirely different. You may feel just the opposite. It's if you're biking or swimming or running underwater or through molasses. You can't do anything right. Your motivation is low. Your mood is bad. And you have these two very different kinds of experiences one day apart from one another. And in that one day, it's unreasonable to have expected that your fitness will have declined or that your technique will have changed that much. The difference between the 2 days is what is going on in your head. Your mental performance has changed. And not only from your own personal experience, you may know the importance of mental skills, but there's been just a mountain of research that's been done that shows how mental skills are important to athletic performance. I always show people this one from one of the earliest studies done in mental skills training with athletes. This is a 1988 study that was done on the Canadian Olympic team, and they gave them just a slew of questionnaires and tracked their performance during the Olympics, and they found that it was their mental skills that were a stronger predictor of their performance in the Olympics than either their physical or technical skills. So there's a great deal of evidence to indicate the importance of mental skills. The problem is that most people don't practice mental skills because they don't know what skills to practice or how to practice them. Also, we have some quotes that I want to give to you that show anecdotally how athletes understand the importance of mental skills. A quote from two-time? I don't know. I should have remembered that. Greg LeMond, Tour de France winner. It's not just a buildup of lactic acid, it's being able to psychologically endure. Also, if you're a runner, you know who Roger Bannister is, the first person to break the 4-minute mile in 1954. The man who can drive himself further once the effort gets painful is the man who will win. Presumably, Bannister would agree that that's true for women as well. Okay, now the tools that mental skills coaches use, there are a variety of them. And think about these as tools you put in your toolbox to use for different purposes. Just like you can use a hammer or a wrench or a screwdriver to do many different things, so too can you use different mental skills to accomplish several different purposes. So we deal with things like helping athletes with goal setting. If you've ever made a New Year's resolution, you probably know that setting a goal is easy, but attaining a goal is hard. And so knowing what kind of goals to set and how to set them and how to track them is part of what sports psychology consultants do with athletes. Also, relaxation training and the converse of that, psyching up strategies to improve motivation and intensity. Use of imagery, self-talk, that is what we say to ourselves and how that affects performance, are all the tools in the mental skills coach's toolbox. Now, all of these different mental skills in some way have a bearing on your dealing with exertion, pain, and fatigue. For example, if you've ever been out on a very tough run or tough ride or done interval training and you've really been hurting those last few miles or in the last efforts, you may have had the experience of setting what I would call micro goals. You just think about not finishing the next 10 miles or finishing the next lap or finishing the next 2 miles. You would think about the next 100 yards or the next mile or just to get through the next minute. And just setting those goals is one way of breaking down a longer performance into something that feels more tolerable. You've probably also had the experience where before a big competition you've needed to psych yourself down or relax so you don't come out of the gate so hard that you blow up on the course. Or conversely, when you're midway through a competition, or for those of you who are triathletes, when you get into the run and you're almost done, you may be really lacking in energy and need psyching up to get yourself energized. All these kind of tools have implications for how to deal with pain and deal with exertion. But tonight I'm going to focus primarily on the latter two, imagery and self-talk. I want to talk a little bit about the different types of pain. And in this webinar, I'm going to be talking about pain and exertion pain and fatigue kind of interchangeably because they come together, and it is largely dependent upon how much space I had on my slide as to which of those words I use. But I'm using them pretty much interchangeably here. But when we talk about pain, I'm thinking about two different kinds of pain that I want to distinguish here. What I'm talking about tonight is exertion pain. This is the kind of dull, achy feeling that happens when you are really putting out a great effort over a longer period of time. It's often described as a dull pain. It's often thought of as being more controllable. You let up, you back off from your effort, and that pain goes down. And it comes with intense physical efforts. On the other hand, there's the other kind of pain which I would describe as warning pain. It's your body's message that something is wrong, that you are hurt or that you are about to hurt yourself. And that pain is often but not always described as more sharp, less controllable, that you may back off the intensity of your effort, and that may lessen the pain, but it also doesn't take the pain away until you completely stop, and that may be due to an injury. It's important to distinguish between those two types of pain because this is my disclaimer here. I don't want to convey the impression that I want to teach you how to fight through your pain mentally no matter what its cause. There's some kind of pain that you need to pay attention to and need to do something about. And when you pay attention to it, you should be able to know the difference. If you have any questions, consult your doctor. Okay. What determines the feeling of fatigue, the feeling of exertion pain? There are two basic causes here. Most of you know about the physical causes of fatigue and exertion pain. That is the buildup of lactic acid in your muscles, the depleted glycogen stores in your muscles. When you're doing hard aerobic efforts, you can get into oxygen debt. You can't intake enough oxygen to fuel the muscles. And those are the physical causes of exertion pain and fatigue. There are, however, a whole set of psychological causes that influence the perception of pain. That is, how badly we feel that we are hurting, regardless of these physiological factors. Things like what kind of mood you're in, how motivated you are, and how you interpret that fatigue, how you explain it, how you see it, what the meaning that you attach to it, are all very important psychological causes of fatigue and exertion pain. We'll be talking about these more as we go on here tonight. The point I want to make about these psychological causes is that many of them have to do with where your attention is focused, what you're paying attention to. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about attention, what's that all about, and again, I'm going to try to do this pretty quickly so that we spend the bulk of the time here this evening talking about the how-to stuff, the stuff that you can do in a real practical way to control and deal with your exertion pain and fatigue.